in a book I read." Vlad wrinkled his forehead and held the notebook closer for inspection. "I don't remember Dad having a tattoo." "Oh, yes, it was thick black ink, and right here." She pointed to the inside of her left wrist. "He had it removed when you were a baby. I think I have pictures." Before Vlad could say more, Nellie walked off in the direction of the living room and returned a moment later with a handful of snapshots. She spread them out on the small table near the door. Her eyes filled with sadness as she looked at a picture of her best friend's family. Vlad, just a baby then, and snuggling close to his mother for comfort. Vlad turned his head, unable to handle the pain the pictures brought. Nellie pointed to Thomas's wrist in one picture. "You can see the tattoo in this one." Vlad plucked the picture from the table and eyed his dad's tattoo closely. It was an exact copy of the symbol he'd seen in the book on the porch. "I remember he had a scar there. He told me it was from an accident he had when he was a kid." When he looked at Nellie, her expression had changed. Her face had become gray, the concerned crease in her brow deepening. She brushed away tears. "Vlad, did I ever tell you about my dog, Gilbert?" Vlad blinked, unsure where her question was coming from and, more importantly, where it was going. "Gilbert was a fine dog, no special breed or even particularly attractive, but he'd fetch anything I threw for him, and he slept at the foot of my bed from the time I was 5 until I was about your age. Then, one night, Gilbert disappeared. I spent months looking for him and cried every night he was gone, hung posters all over the town offering a reward. I lost sleep searching for him, let my grades slip. It really took over my life looking for that dog. Finally, my father sat me down and told me that he'd taken Gilbert out to the woods behind our house and shot him." She blinked away another tear and patted Vlad on the shoulder, comforting him when clearly she was the one in need of comforting. "Oh, my father wasn't a monster or anything, but it turned out that Gilbert had a very painful bone disease, so my father put him down. To this day, I can't think of my father the same way. Every sweet memory I have is soured by what he did to my dog." She slung her purse over her arm and looked pointedly at Vlad. "All I'm saying is that you should be grateful that there are some things you don't know about your father, and that sometimes it's best to leave well enough alone." After she closed the door behind her, Vlad lugged the journal and the large book with the glyph and locks out of his backpack and carried them over to the coffee table. He thumbed through the journal for a few moments before flipping to the final entry, dated the day before his parents died. November 18. The council is closing in. I am tempted to flee Bathory for the safety of Siberia, but Melina is not aware of the potential danger we are in, nor is Vlad, and I refuse to educate them in the midst of such a difficult journey. So we shall remain here, and I will do whatever is necessary in order to protect them, no matter the cost. Vlad must be preserved. I have stored several items in Nellie's attic for lack of space in our own. One of them I hope will be of great use to Vladimir as he grows older. It is the Compendium of Consentia, a book handed down from vampire to vampire since the beginning of our age. Everything he needs to know about our history, our prophecies, and our ways is in this book. It is crucial that Vlad memorize Elysian code and study this text at great length. I will begin teaching him the code later this week, after his 10th birthday celebration. Tonight, I am very weary and must rest. Sometimes I am astonished at how well I've adapted to sleeping at night. If the nightmares of late would cease, I would actually look forward to my head hitting the pillow. I was foolish in stealing the Lucius during my latest Elysia break-in. It alerted them to my presence, for who would want the tool but me? Should they come for me, tonight, tomorrow, whenever, I will surrender myself to the Council's will in exchange for the safety of my family. But I will not run from them any more. Vlad closed the cover and ran his fingers over his father's name. Shaking off the sadness, he turned on the television. Nothing was on. Well, nothing good, anyway, but he left the TV on to fill the house with noise and opened the book, flipping to the pyramid of symbols. Vlad traced the outline of his father's tattoo with his fingernail and half listened to the news reporter on Channel 5 who was droning on about some car accident that was blocking an exit on the freeway. A woman's voice broke in, catching Vlad's interest. "Thank you, Ted. And in other news, a body has been discovered near Requiem Ravine and is believed to be the remains of a missing Bathory Junior High teacher." Vlad sat up and grabbed the remote, pressing the volume button until the television couldn't blare any louder. John Craig had been missing for several months when local police pulled his body from the ravine. Police are baffled as to the cause of death, but speculate that an animal may be responsible. Mr. Craig was 34 years old. Could a wild dog be running rampant in the streets of Bathory? Although the local police assure us that this has not been proven, this reporter believes it to be a very real, very scary possibility. And now, here's Terence with the weather. Vlad clicked the television off and sank back into the cushions of the couch. Mr. Craig was dead. Deceased, croaked, departed, shuffled off his mortal coil, bought the farm, slain, fallen, bit the big one, dead as a doornail, gone, out of business, late, lifeless, taking a dirt nap, kaput, worm food, cashed in his chips, finished, lapsed, pushing up daisies, terminated, inanimate, kicked the bucket, passed his expiration date, non-living, checked out, left the building, bitten the dust, passed away, passed on, isn't coming back for the sequel, dead. Killed by a vampire, Vlad was almost sure. Late last night, in Thomas's journal, Vlad had read about Elysia, of tales of camaraderie and celebration, of familial ties, of being bound by blood. Vlad had found himself longing to encounter those of his own kind, to travel to the streets of Elysia, that faraway vampire world. But after a while, it seemed more like a fairy tale than anything else. Like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, only with fangs. But the presence of Mr. Otis had proven quite different from the images Vlad's imagination had conjured up. He felt terribly threatened by Otis's presence. And who was that Diablo guy? Another vampire? Were vampires all over Bathory now, hunting for Vlad? And hadn't any of them thought to pick up a phone book? Bathory was populated by fewer than 2,000 people, for crying out loud. If Mr. Otis was planning on killing him, why hadn't he done it last night after dinner? Why the games? If Mr. Otis were from Elysia, why had he killed Thomas? Was Vlad's dad a criminal? And what did that make Vlad? Why was Otis stalking him? He couldn't have broken the law. He'd never been to Elysia. Vlad shivered. Maybe he wouldn't belong there either. Maybe, no matter where he went, he'd be a freak. The doorbell rang, shaking Vlad from his daze. Vlad pulled open the front door and froze. Mr. Otis tipped his top hat slightly, holding Vlad's gaze with his serious eyes. "I was disappointed not to find you in class today, Vladimir." His cheeks looked pale and gaunt, as if he hadn't eaten in some time. Vlad pursed his lips and looked at his feet. He was tempted to slam the door in Mr. Otis's face and slap the deadbolt until it clicked. But old habits die hard, so instead he stood there and quietly waited for his teacher to finish so he could get on with his life. "I have an urgent matter to discuss with you, Vlad. I'm afraid it can't wait." Mr. Otis pressed against the door, but Vlad shoved his shoulder against the wood, leaving merely a foot of air between the door and the jamb. His teacher's face was inches from his own. "Mind if I come in for a snack? I'm sure you have something around the house that will appeal to my particular appetite." Feeling the hairs rise on the back of his neck, Vlad shot his teacher a look, fueled by betrayal. "Didn't anybody ever tell you it's not nice to threaten your students?" "Do you feel threatened by me?" Otis nudged the door forward another inch, as if demonstrating that Vlad's strength wasn't an obstacle for him. "That's not my intent. I just want to get close to you, Vladimir." Vlad relinquished his hold on the door. He was shaking in his shoes, but he couldn't let Mr. Otis know that. He squeezed his fists tight against his jeans, ready for whatever Otis had in mind. The corner of Otis's mouth rose, and for a second, Vlad could just make out the hint of a fang. "Let me in, Vlad. Don't make this difficult." "Don't make what difficult?" The porch board squeaked as Henry approached, a concerned look on his face. Mr. Otis looked back and forth between the boys, and then glanced behind him, as if weighing his options. Without a word, he turned and stepped off the porch, pausing momentarily before continuing his exit. Vlad breathed a nervous sigh of relief. "Oh, man, I'm screwed, Henry. I'm totally screwed." They went upstairs. Henry told Vlad about school getting cut short because of Mr. Craig's body being found, and Vlad told Henry all about last night's dinner. Henry gave him a playful smack on the shoulder. "So you're saying your teacher sucks?" Vlad brushed his bangs out of his eyes and snickered. "That's what I've been saying. I mean, he admitted it, Henry. He all but told me he's a vampire." Henry led the way down the stairs and out the front door. They both kept their eyes alert for any sign of Mr. Otis. When they reached Henry's porch, Henry squinted up at the sun. "I wonder how he keeps from frying in the daylight." Vlad shrugged. "Maybe he uses sunblock too. Or maybe he's half human like me. Maybe his soul's so dark that even the sun won't touch him." Henry's tone was serious, so Vlad didn't laugh. Instead, he looked quizzically at his friend as he tossed his bag onto the porch. Henry dropped his bag beside Vlad's.